Hello, and welcome to another special report from Catholic Family News. Over the past year or so, we've done several programs speaking with people who have been affected by the promulgation of Traditionis Custodes and its various implementations or applications, particularly in the United States. We've talked to several different communities who have experienced what's been going on in various ways, and they shared their experience with us. So today we are going to be joined by the president and the academic dean of the Collegium. And hopefully, this will be a name for particularly our long term viewers that you will remember because we did a program in the very early days when the Collegium launched. It is really one of the newest academic institutions in the United States, but it's attempting to be new by being old. It's, as you can see here, it's one of its mottos of embracing tradition. And it's really focused on presenting classical education that is completely consistent with Catholicism and traditional Catholic teaching and practice, but very importantly, that is affordable. So it's really taking on the industry of higher education, which makes, essentially makes you have to indenture yourself for life practically to be able to afford university. I exaggerate, but not too much. So there recently has been an announcement that affects this new, relatively new college as it relates to the traditional liturgy. So we're going to welcome Dr. Edward Schaefer, who is the president, has been the founding president of the Collegium, as well as Dr. Phillip Berns, who is the dean of academics, as well as professor of philosophy. So welcome back to Catholic Family News, gentlemen.
Brian, nice to see you.
Thank you. It's good to be here, Brian.
Great. Well, as I mentioned, I just introduced a little bit the college. We did a longer presentation on it, but maybe if you both could just take a few minutes before we get into the current topic, so let us know how things have progressed the past couple of years, maybe how many students you have, what the general progression before these recent events has been with the college.
You want to take that, Ed?
You want me to take that, Philip?
Sure.
All right. Well, it has certainly been a learning curve, but we have turned a corner, and I would say the last 2 years have been remarkable. We have only 8 students at the moment. They are the best 8 students anyone could ever hope to have in the country. They're just amazing people. I tell people these are the students I would want my children to hang out with. However, in the fall, we'll have over 20 students. So we've started to pick up some steam in terms of people knowing that we're available, and what we offer. So that's been great. In terms of the liturgical practice, we have had an extraordinary couple of years. We had a pastor who was very, very supportive. Really functioned in many ways as a chaplain for us. We had high masses every week. We have a very fine schola. I think there's a couple of short recordings on YouTube. You can look them up. But we have a very fine schola, and we had a nice relationship actually with the parish choir itself. Some of us would sing with them on certain weeks, and then the music director would sing with us and be part of our schola. So we had a very nice relationship with the parish. Dr. Berns taught in the RCA program. We had students helping in the school. So we had a very, very collaborative relationship.
And by the parish, you mean the territorial parish that the college resides near, and maybe a little bit in which diocese we'd be talking about.
Yes, it's St. Mary's in Hagerstown. Historical church goes back to 1758, I believe. So they were here 50 years before Elizabeth Seton came into the territory. It's really the mother church of the entire Western Maryland and even some areas up in Pennsylvania. And we are in the Archdiocese of Baltimore.
And so you and your students would go for the Mass to the parish, or this parish priest would come to the college building, or how's that been working?
The parish had an 11:30 a.m. Traditional Latin Mass, TLM, every Sunday. he would often have them. He would call us up on, we sing lauds and vespers every day, and so he would call us up on, say, today's my day off, but I'm going to do a private mass. Would you guys like to have mass instead of vespers today? And that would happen maybe once a week or once every other week. Every holy day we had high masses. In fact, the first year we were here, we had a solemn mass every Sunday from Gaudete all the way through Epiphany. Um, he would get other priests to come or seminarians to come down. Holy days, feast days. It was it was it was idyllic.
Hmm. So, Dr. Berns, maybe you could share
I don't know if you want to
your
add
your
anything
oh
to
yeah, if
that.
you want to share your perspective, maybe particularly about the students that you have and the new group coming in, your impressions of them.
Yeah, so I think I would concur with Dr. Schaefer's assessment. We really do have a fantastic group of students presently, and indeed some of the towards the higher end of students that I've taught. I mean, I've taught at other colleges. I used to teach at the high school level, and still I would say, in about 11 years of teaching, these are some of the best students that I've ever had, and so I really look forward to continuing this with them with next year. And the group that we have coming in, I think, as Dr. Schaefer said, will probably double our enrollment, maybe a little more. So that's going to be fantastic. It looks like we're picking up a little bit of traction finally. And this looks to be a great group of students coming in as well from all across the country. I mean, with California, Texas, Nebraska, places like that. And then, of course, locally, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Virginia as well, and again, handfuls of other places besides. And it's sort of a wide span, although the concentration does seem to be, we do seem to have a rather large group of it's concentrated from homeschoolers,
Mhm.
but a few from maybe diocesan high schools, one or two from a private high school, something like that. But it does largely seem to be from homeschool groups. But it's really been great so far. Our faculty is growing and in great shape. As I count it, by next fall, we'll not only have a good number of students coming in, about doubling our enrollment or so, we'll have 9 faculty on staff. So that's and all of whom, as we said, we all take the oath against modernism. All of us are committed not only to the highest standards of academic excellence to pass on to our students, but of course the perennial truths of the faith as well, to make sure that our students are well formed.
Which, unlike CGF Brabant, there's no tension between those two. They are actually
Yes,
exactly. Yes. So
yes,
excellent. No, talk about a student-faculty ratio.
True.
Talk about personalized attention. That's wonderful to have that many faculty
Yeah.
working with
indeed.
the students.
I,
So,
I'd like to add
right.
something to what Philip just said, because I think of our 20 students in the fall, we will have one student who has come from a public high school. We will have one student that has come from a private Catholic high school, and all the rest have been homeschooled. So it's an interesting dynamic about where the church is going in terms of people who are interested in preserving and passing on the traditions. It seems like it's becoming very largely the domain of the homeschool population, which is probably no surprise to any of your listeners, but um, but that's certainly what we're seeing.
Sure, sure. Well, if we can move to more recent events, as we've talked about on this show, one of the themes of the sort of whole process of Traditionis Custodes, which was issued in July of 2021, is to reduce, some might argue, eventually eliminate the presence of the Mass of all ages, the traditional Latin Mass, in parish, specifically in parish churches. Sort of contra uh, Pope Benedict XVI, whose action in Summorum Pontificum was to encourage, actually in parishes, to have parishes have the mass present so people can see it in the parish setting. The movement, particularly, and this seems to be confirmed from the dicastery for divine worship, Archbishop Cardinal Roche, view is to try to get bishops and dioceses to, if they're going to have a mass around, get it out of the parishes. So in that vein, it seems like Baltimore's number has come up. And tell us what you learned about what will happen to this parish that's been so close to the college, and where you think this is coming from. If you think this was the local bishop, or was this intervention from the Vatican?
Mhm. Well, for starters, it seems like you can talk about what's going to happen
Yeah,
in the parish.
yeah.
If I can say, maybe as just a small way of preliminary, one of the oddities that's happening too, right, is a place where Catholics and our students, our faculty, people that live around here, and a number of Catholics that are attached to the traditional Mass, that were here, that were a part of the life of a parish, that were involved in the parish, and they found a spiritual home in the parish. And then, as you said, July 2021 comes along, and all of a sudden, well, now there is division in the parish, right? A whole group of us were told that, well, we didn't belong, and we needed to go look somewhere else. And it really is, right. This is damaging to the life of the church, to the life of the faithful. It's damaging to the life of our students. I've mentioned this in passing a few times to a few people, right? We remember, or maybe sometimes you'll meet traditional Catholics who lived through some of this first, like, attempted at suppression through the imposition of the new Mass through the 70s and the 80s, and just how horribly they were treated. And so many of them, who grew up and continued, and they're, I don't know, kind of rather cynical or jaded with their view of the church. It happens sometimes, and we're creating a whole new generation of those Catholics. Young students who, in the Summorum Pontificum era, have grown up in diocesan parishes as being a part of the traditional Latin Mass, and we're doing this all over again to them. But specifically all right, so to your point, I think our Mass here, the traditional Latin Mass, ends. I believe it's the last weekend in July, whatever that date is the last Sunday that we will have the traditional Latin Mass in our parish setting. At that point, the Archbishop has decreed then that the only access the faithful will have in the Archdiocese of Baltimore to the traditional Latin Mass is at the National Shrine of St. Alphonsus Liguori, which is run by the FSSP in Baltimore. But there will no longer be any traditional Latin Masses in any parish settings in the Archdiocese. There are a few options that are in other dioceses that are kind of nearby to us, but there won't be anything any longer diocesan-wise in the Archdiocese of Baltimore.
And I guess geographically, from where the college is, how far is this church that you referenced in Baltimore?
Yes, from Hagerstown to St. Alphonsus in Baltimore is probably about an hour and 20-minute drive, thereabouts, and so one way back.
Mm-hmm. So, and again, I don't know if you...
There are actually other Masses that are closer.
But not in the diocese.
Yeah, there are other Masses that are closer. Harrisburg is about an hour away. No, and we've been encouraged to go to Mass in other dioceses. Charlestown, the Priory of the Annunciation, is about 50 minutes away, and the Carmelite Convent is about 45 minutes away. So those are worst case options. We're not completely destitute. It's not ideal, and I'm not convinced this is permanent. I just don't know how long temporary is.
Yeah, well, the life of the church, what's a few hundred years?
Yes.
Now, so you mentioned the Carmelite. That's the Carmelite monastery in Pennsylvania. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yes. Yeah, we've done some reporting on that group before. So how have the students and the faculty reacted to this news?
Well, I think, as you can imagine, probably with some amount of I would maybe say, I would use the word with pain, with sorrow, right? This is a place where students came to be formed in the Catholic faith. Many of our faculty, some of them who moved here. I moved up here, right? I'm from down south. We moved up here to be a part of the sort of traditional life of the church, to be part of an educational institution that's centered around that, and yet to all of a sudden sort of be told that we don't belong anymore, or that you should my parish is sort of like, we talk about it, it's my spiritual home, right? Someone came into my house and told me that I needed to go somewhere else, and that's it's very sort of injurious, I think, to the life of any member of the faithful. But I think our students and our faculty also understand too that the life of the church here on earth still mirrors the life of Christ on earth, and even Christ had to endure his passion and his suffering, and so so do we as well.
Dr. Schaefer, do you want to add to that? Do you have it?
Yes, I do. One of the good things that's come from this, we're an institution that has a classically molded education, and we purport to give our students the tools that they need um, to learn, to think through problems in a logical way, and to address those problems in a holistic manner. And that's exactly what the faculty did. We came together and we spent several sessions um, looking at what were our responsibilities with regard to magisterial authority, what are our responsibilities with regard to the virtue of obedience, how do we term the traditional Latin Mass in terms of in the way it envelops the deposit of faith, and what kind of responsibility does that give us, and with those as backgrounds, how do we approach orders that are, from our perspective, really not morally righteous. And we spent a lot of time in prayer coming through that. And I think we've created a kind of position paper. Um, it will get spread out. It's actually going to be in a book that we're publishing at the end of this month by the 1st of June. And it will be in that book that talks about the case for tradition. And so I just want to say, as the president of the institution, I've been very pleased. That's a slight word, I suppose, to see the process that we've used. We've actually lived what we are as an academic institution to address this problem, and I think that's been very rewarding for me personally and spiritually to see the faculty go through this. So it doesn't give us all the answers, but as we said earlier, we do have some worst case scenarios, but we are continuing to explore all legal options for us. And there are other people in the parish. We're not the only ones. I mean, that Mass was bringing close to 200 people a week, and they're all trying to figure out what to do. And so there are other people who are exploring, what are the options open to us as faithful, obedient Catholics. And depending on the options they come up with, we may have some other answers as well. So anyhow, I just wanted to make that point, that I think the way we've approached this has been very rewarding to me, that we're actually living what we purport to be.
Mm. No, it's God sends trials and difficulties often to test our resolve to our principles, right? It's easy to have principles when things are going well. When they're not is the true test. But if I can maybe return to a question I started earlier. What's your sense on maybe where this came from? Do you think this is just the bishop decided he wanted to do this? Do you have any feeling or sense that there was pressure being put on the diocese from Rome? Oh, we did a story last week about the Diocese of Baltimore that's really uh, cratering. I can't really dress it up any better than that. 20 churches are closing. The numbers of people attending mass is in the low thousands. So it's just kind of odd. You think a diocese where it seems like very few people are going, they're having to close a third of their churches according to their own announcement. Here's a community of 200 people you mentioned. Where is this impulse, do you think, coming from to say thank you, but you're not welcome anymore?
Yeah, let me take that, Philip. And first of all, I need to correct you, Brian. They're not closing a third of the churches; they're closing 2/3 of the
Oh,
churches.
you're
They're
right.
only
I
leaving
misspoke.
1/3 of them open.
Yes, I it's worse than I said.
Yes,
Yes.
um, and you're right. I mean, there's all kinds of illogical pieces to this, right? The part of the church that's growing is being suppressed. You make a statement that says people that want the traditional mass, it's fine for them in St. Alphonsus Shrine, but somehow it's bad for the people at St. Mary's. I mean, there's all kinds of uh, issues about this that lack all logic. Okay. However, I do want to say it's very clear to us that this is coming directly from Rome. The bishop has been very supportive of us from the very beginning. We needed in the very beginning, we needed a $500,000 bond before the state would even accept our application for a permit. And one of the members on an industrial board that was looking at us to offer some funding is very close with the bishop, and he would have vetoed the matter had the bishop not been supportive. And he and I met. He went down and spoke with the bishop, and the bishop said, "I have no objection. Bring them on." The bishop has given Dr. Berns a mandatum. Right, so he has spoken to us on occasions that he really likes what we're doing, the theological and philosophical foundations. So I don't think this is coming from the bishop at all. Now, do I wish that the bishop had taken different measures, as some of the other bishops have, and found ways to get around it or found ways to operate? Yes, I do. At the same time, I don't walk in his shoes. I don't understand the nature and the specifics of the pressures under which he's placed. So you know, I'm not going to attack him for this, because I'm very clear that this was not his doing.
Did you have anything to add to that, Dr. Berns? Or?
No, I don't think so. Just as I can say, my conversations with the Archbishop on the handful of times they've happened have always been very, very pleasant and very cordial, and he knows exactly who we are and why we're and the kind of mission that we're committed to. He has expressed his support and understanding of that in the past, and it does seem rather evident, I think, right, that the whatever pressure he's getting, it doesn't seem to be originating from him.
And maybe to follow up for our viewers who may not be as familiar, Dr. Schaefer referred to him granting you a mandatum. Could you maybe just explain for our viewers who don't know what that means, what that is?
Yeah, so in sort of quick terms, the mandatum is the word for a command or an allowance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that I have the permission of the ordinary of the place to teach theology in the name of the Catholic Church, right? That being a professor of theology, that what I teach is in accord with the magisterium, it is in line with the tradition of the Church and with the faith, and I have the approval of the ordinary of the place to teach theology here. And yes, he's granted that to me.
Good. So it sounds like, again, you have several options on the table. Maybe from the college's position, and here maybe speak to some parents who might be thinking to send their children there. And maybe you don't have the specifics yet. As you said, there's other possibilities. But is the college just going to say, well, here are your options, go ahead? Or is the college able to provide some support, physical support, transportation to students to, enable them to make it easier to get to some of these more distant locations if that's what's necessary?
I feel like I have a personal responsibility. We've built this thing on the tradition, and I don't think we can pull the rug out from under people when they come and say, well, that was last week and not this week. So we're going to make it work. We've got several months to figure this out, and other options may come. In fact, they've just started a Byzantine Mass in Hagerstown. Now, the Byzantine Mass is not the Roman Mass. It doesn't, for me personally, it doesn't really replace the ancient Roman liturgy, but it is an apostolic rite, and it deserves our support and respect, and it is another option that we have when they have the Mass here. In fact, this week I spoke to the cantor, and I asked him if he'd be interested in our schola singing a polyphonic setting of their Mass for them, and they were delighted. So we may create some sort of collaborative venture with them. I don't think that will. We're not going to make that. I don't think that's going to become our spiritual home, but they're apostolic cousins, and they deserve our support, and it gives us another option while we're wading through the mire of this situation.
No, I absolutely right. I mean, I assume almost all, if not all, of your students are from the Roman Rite, so it would make sense to have provisions for that. But certainly, as part of this classical education, some cooperation with the Byzantine Church to learn about, even if it's not our own liturgy, but to learn about the beauty and antiquity of it would certainly enrich the
Mm-hmm.
educational curriculum. I would agree. Great. Well, that's pretty much, I think, what I had to discuss with you. But perhaps before we go, you referred to a book that you're publishing that will have as an appendix this position paper on the situation with the Mass. I don't know if you give us a little more information about the title. You mentioned be coming out in a few weeks, but where people could find it. So if they're interested in reading it, give us a little bit about the book.
Yes, the best way to get the book is to go to our website and just sign up for our notices for email list. That's the best, because they'll be the first people to notice to get notified that it's available. We are publishing it. I think we'll use one of the self-publishers. We're working those details out now. The book is called A Simple Man's Case for Tradition, and there's 9 chapters. It's a small book, maybe 100 pages, and it will deal with it's not I wouldn't call it an in-depth theological, because there's a lot of study. There's a lot of books that already do that. Kwasniewski has several. Ripperger has some dealing with church authority. Fedorowski has some regarding the Mass and its position in apostolic tradition. So, I mean, I'm really speaking from an experiential standpoint. Why I have chosen tradition and to offer that. And so there are 3 chapters on the liturgy, there are 3 chapters on doctrinal concerns, and there are 3 chapters on just living the life of a Catholic. And we will put this in at the end. We even have a chapter on the Society of St. Pius X, because I think when people are looking for tradition, that's one of the, they've been so poorly maligned, as you well know, Brian, that people have, and there are long, detailed books about the whole SSPX matter. Kennedy Hall's is probably the most in-depth, but I think people they're not always ready for that. They have 2 or 3 questions. They want to know, can I go to a Mass in a society chapel? That's what they want to know. Right? And so there'll be a little bit in there, but mainly it's about why I've chosen tradition and why other people should think about it. So go to the Collegium, sign up for our email list, and you'll be notified immediately when it comes out, which will be by the end of this month. And I think it'll be an easy and very informative read for people. So thank you for that.
Great. No, looking forward to it. Again, as you said, there are hefty theological, legal, philosophical works on it. I think Dr. Kwasniewski has another book each week. I I have a list of some of his books I have to catch up on. He is an incredibly prolific writer. But it does sound like this is a very different book in terms of more of personal experience, right? Because there are the truths and the arguments which are important, but when we touch the faith and the liturgy, it is also something personal. It's not. Sometimes people that don't understand tradition think it's all intellectual, right? I've met. Why do I go? I have to understand Latin. I have to study this and I have to study that, and obviously we're called to know and always be studying our faith, but it's certainly more than that. It is we're meant to uh, take this tradition because it helps us to come to know, love, and serve God, right? And love being, as St. Paul says, the greatest. So looking forward to hear your story and your perspective on it. So wonderful. Well, thank you both for joining us there. I have the website there. We'll also have it in the description of this video. And congratulations, you're almost the end of this academic year, to have another year behind you. And we wish you well next year, and hope all goes well.
Very good. Thank you, Brian. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, it's a pleasure to see you all
Thank
again.
you, Brian. It's been a pleasure to be here.
And to our viewers, thank you for joining us. Again, if you've enjoyed this program, please help us by forwarding this to your friends, relatives, like and subscribe to our channels. That will help promote this video. And as always, consider a subscription to our monthly newspaper, Catholic Family News, which supports all our apostolates. So thank you, everyone, and God bless.